Hey everyone, it's Ray. I really like to participate in a writing prompts subreddit because I think it is an amazing way to develop your writing skills and just posting over here a few stories every day is just an amazing exercise that really helped me to develop my writing. So in this video I want to share with you my process. I want to just explain to you step by step how to take a writing prompt and to turn it into a story. So basically our goal is to come up with a short scene that is interesting to read, and we want to do it reasonably quickly, and we want to be able to figure it out always, because often when I was getting started it was really difficult to answer some of the prompts because then I would just get stuck and feel like I have a writing block or something like that. But the problem was that I couldn't figure it out because I didn't have the tools to understand what goes into the process of coming up with the story. So here it is, here's my process. Basically, when I take a writing prompt, I begin with brainstorming. So what I do is I think about setting, character, and the challenge. What you want, basically it means that when you look at a prompt, you think about which of these elements it already provides and which of them you need to figure out. For example, if a prompt gives you an example of a character in some crazy situation, or a warrior on a battlefield or something like that, you pretty much have a setting and a character, and then you need to figure out a challenge. Or maybe prompt will give you some sort of a problem, like the world is going to end, and now you have a problem or a challenge for the character, and you need to figure out what character you want in your story and what setting. Basically, you will have some of those, but others you figure out. And to brainstorm them, it's pretty simple. My favorite way to do that is to just take my favorite trope. You can look at the tvtropes.com or just think about your favorite stories or TV shows and think about cool characters that you've seen there or cool settings. So if you ever get stuck, and it's often when you begin writing you get stuck and this sort of thing, and you just can't come up with something, you don't have to blow anybody's mind, you don't have to come up with something super original. Just take your favorite trope and use it in your story, and this will be really helpful way for you to move forward, so that you would have three basic elements to get started with your story, and then you can just move on and continue with it. And once you have those, basically you want to come up with a tagline for your story, and that will be a character striving to accomplish a goal. So you will have a character, and when you have a challenge, it will basically provide your character with a goal that he will strive to accomplish through his story. So once you have done that, you want to start with the step I call world building. But basically it's not just world building, but your attempt to figure out all of the open questions that you still need to answer to come up with your story. For example, often prompts will ask you to come up with some crazy invention, or with some interesting animal that a character has to interact with. So even if you have setting, character, and a challenge, often you have these open science fiction equations that you need to figure out before you can begin writing. So the next step is to answer these questions. It will be much easier once you have these fundamentals. So you just write down a list of questions for yourself that your prompt asks you to answer, and just answer them one by one. I found it really helpful for me, because again, often you get stuck, often you feel like you have a writer's block, often you don't know what to write about, and when you do it proactively, step by step. Just create a list of a few questions that you need to know, and just answer them. Again, to answer them, you can just figure out to come up with something, or if you really get stuck, again, take some sort of trope that you like if you cannot come up with a cool magical creature, just take your favorite Pokemon and use him as a basics for your cool creature. So once you have all of the answers, yeah, and the second great way to do that is to just do improv discovery writing. So one step is like analytical, so you just make a list of questions and you answer them one by one. Just what is the creatures that I need to come up with, and then you think to yourself, okay, I think about this Pokemon, I think about this other creature that I like, and I choose the best one that you like. Alternatively, you can just start writing. Basically, to do that, you set aside all of your questions. You don't know where your story is going to lead. You have no idea about your story whatsoever. You just begin writing. Here I am in the forest, lost. Oh my god, what am I going to do? The character Chris, my friend, is hanging out with me, and we are trying to get out of this forest. Oh, what are we going to do? We go in that direction, and just like that, you just start basically doing improv. You just start writing your stream of consciousness and try to imagine the scene in your head, and then your brain automatically is going to fill the gaps and help you to figure out the missing pieces. So this is a great way to answer again questions and it can be easier or it can be harder depending on your mindset and on what you need to do. So these are the two great ways to figure out what you want to write and to fill in all of the gaps for a story. And then the final set of questions that you want to answer is the characters. Again, there is a lot of types of character in stories, but you need to know only two of them: protagonist and antagonist. It is very simple, very basic, because we are writing very short story. We want to keep it as simple as possible. So we want to know protagonist, antagonist, and then again your brain will fill the gaps automatically, and if you want to add some other characters, you will not have problems with it. Basically, the protagonist is a character that is the avatar for for a person who is reading your story, who your reader most identifies himself with, and the character your reader will be rooting for. And antagonist is the one who is standing, the character who has the opposite goal, who is standing in his way, and who the protagonist is going to be fighting against. This is just bare bones, the most basic fundamental characters that you can have in your story. So to come up with a cool protagonist, again, it is a very deep topic. There is plenty of lectures and videos that will give you advice about it. But to keep it really simple, I usually just come up with a cool profession, with an interesting, unusual profession, like maybe he's a magician, maybe he is a necromancer, maybe he is like alien warrior or something, or maybe he is a surgeon. So when you have an interesting profession, you already have an image of your head of a certain character. Then you again pick a personality trope. Basically, his personality. Like, is he cheerful? Is he gloomy? Is he a jerk? Just again think about your favorite characters. Like I usually think about, I don't know, like Dr. House, Hermione, Kaylee from Firefly, Captain from Firefly, like the guy from The Martian, from the novel The Martian. And just think about all of your favorite stories, or maybe even people from your real life, and just take one of them and decide that your character will have personality of this person. The next thing you need to figure out is his goals. Again, just what goals does he have, what will he want to achieve in this story, and three little things that will make that will help you to make your character more unique is his past, like what dramatic great events happened to him before the story began, what is his deep dark secret, and what are his weird quirks or weird habits. This is just three interesting questions that you want to answer that will help you to come up with a cool, interesting, unique character. On top of the professional and personality trope, when you answer all of these attributes of this character, basically you will have a cool, very interesting guy to work with. And for antagonist, it's again basically the same stuff. You may want to answer these questions, but also usually the biggest challenge about protagonist is that you want to come up with an opposite goal and for a motivation, like why is this antagonist messing with the protagonist, why is he standing in his way. Like, you don't want to have antagonist to be evil just for the sake of being evil. You want him to be like motivated for some reason. So you want to figure out this motivation, and basically you will have your antagonist, and then during your story they're just going to fight against each other. And again, here's a little bit of a cool advice to cast a character out of their roles. So, for example, you can take a character of a wise old wizard, like this is the usual trope of a character, and you want to cast him in the role of a goofy sidekick. So then in your story there would be a goofy sidekick who is looking like a Gandalf. Or you want to take again another character trope, like a love interest, like a pretty girl, and make her antagonist. So when you take a character that is supposed to take a certain place in the story and put him in place of another character, it again really helps you to come up with all sorts of crazy, creative, original ideas. So that's just a little advice to make it more interesting. And one more thing I wanted to add is that you want to think about inner conflict that your protagonist has. Just it is something based in his fear, or maybe something that he is. Basically, think about what your character fears the most. When you know what he is afraid of, you will know the inner conflict that his inner flaw that he will need to overcome throughout the story. Alright, so once you have completed these stages, you know the setting, your characters, you know what the problem he's trying to solve, you know all of the details that are related to science fiction and all sorts of crazy sci-fi ideas, and you know all of the details about your characters. Now, just with these few steps, you have everything you need to do to write a story. And on the next step, what you want to do is to structure your story. Just create an outline that will help you just to determine a sequence of events. Because writing prompts are usually short, so you are not trying to write a big long novel over here. Your structure is going to be pretty simple. First, you want to come up with a setup, and it's going to be just an introductory paragraph that is going to just set up a scene, like what the characters are, where are they, what the world is like, basically just to set the scene for the story, like do some info dump to explain how their world works, and just in a few sentences you want to describe, to just put the reader into the environment that you're writing about. Okay, so the next thing, you want to quickly go to the problem. Basically, it's called inciting incident in screenwriting, and this is the event in the story that kicks off the plot, that makes all of the events happen. That is the reason you are telling the story, like asteroid is hitting the earth, or the shark is infesting some waters, or maybe your character is running somewhere. Basically, the problem, you want to introduce the problem that your character is trying to solve. It will create a conflict, and it will hook the reader into the story. And you basically figured it out on this step when you were coming up with the challenge. So this is the same thing. Just put over here this description of the problem. The next part of the story is escalate. So what happens is that a character is trying to solve this problem. He is going through. He is taking some action. he facing some problems, he makes some progress, then there are some setbacks, so he succeeds a little bit, then fails, then succeeds again, and step by step, milestone by milestone, moves forward towards achieving his goal, meanwhile fighting the antagonist and all of the forces that are messing with him. And he is striving against the obstacles to achieve his goal. This is basically the second act of your story. Like these two elements are the first act, this is the second act, and this will be the third act. So this is the longest part of the story, and this is basically the core, the meat of your story, like where the action is, where heroes are taking out their guns and fighting the bad guys and all that stuff. And the easiest, again, it is often a very confusing and weird step to undertake, because it's really difficult to to come up with some cool sequence of events that are that your character is going to go through. Often it's like a very confusing part of the writing process. So to make it much simpler, I recommend you to begin with just coming up with 3 examples of 3 attempts. Like, you have a character, he has a goal, come up with 3 attempts that he will going to do to try to achieve these goals. Like 3 things he's going to try. Like, first thing, he's going to try a little, it will be like the easiest thing he can try. He will be it will be relatively simple, and then he will fail. So he will escalate his effort, and he will put more effort, he will be more invested in the situation, he will try harder and fail again. And then the third time he's going to try, and he will fail very hard. It will be the biggest fail in the story, and this will provide a nice little escalating escalating structure to your second act. And it is really simple, because you can always come up with 3 things that your character is going to do. And to give you some really cool examples to make it super easy for you, like if you're creating something like fantasy or something like action, you can just come up with random encounters. Like like in D&D, when people play D&D games, they just have a group of characters that are going towards some goal, and they will meet a monster, and then they will fight a monster, and then they will defeat it. Then they will meet another monster. So just basically come up with 3 monsters you need, or 3 like obstacles on the character's way, and write about how he will overcome them. If you're writing a mystery, like maybe you're writing about a detective who is trying to solve a murder, then you want to come up with 3 clues that he's going to encounter on his path. Like he's going to like Sherlock is going to find some little clue, he's going to pursue it, find the second clue, then the third clue, etc. Again, the other type of story is you can write is heist story. Like think about Firefly and the episode when they are trying to rob the hospital for medication. So think about the 3 stages of the plan that your character are going to undertake to achieve their objective. So, and then in your story you're going to write about, like, here's the first stage of the plan, here's the second stage, here's the third stage, and then something goes wrong, and that sort of thing. So again, that way it's very easy to break down the progress and setbacks your characters are going to go through. And again, in fantasy, like think about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, like you can often do this part of the story like through travel locations. Like think about Lord of the Rings. Like first they needed to go to the elf's lair, I don't know how it's called, then they need to go to another place, and again the story is going to describe step by step how characters traveling from the Hobbit place to the Mordor, 3 locations, again step by step, just challenges they are going to face during this travel, and it again gives you very straightforward path towards creating your story. And you can create also training steps, again some story about training a person, and he is going to again face some challenges and go through them. So this really helps me to figure out the second act of the story. That makes it really simple, so I think you will find it valuable. And finally, the final part of the story you need to figure out is resolution. So basically, when character goes through three challenges, he is going to be more and more invested in the story. He will take bigger risks. The story is going to escalate, and the challenges will become harder and harder. And at each challenge, basically, he is going to fail. So at the first challenge, he will try to make some progress, but then there will be failure. Second, the same thing. And at the third challenge, there will be the biggest failure in the story. It's called the all is lost moment. Like in screenwriting, you maybe often see in screenplays or in movies, like at the end of the second act, like it is the saddest, the darkest moment of the movie because characters has failed, like basically antagonist has won, like we are screwed, like everything is lost, like that's it, character is about to die, like basically everything is bad. Like think about the Megamind when he's falling down from the skyscraper, or basically think about any story. Like think about the Matrix where Neo gets shot and then there are these evil robots that are attacking the ship, and basically in every story there's this moment. And this is where your second act is going to end. And in resolution, what your character does is he takes all of his intelligence, all of his resourcefulness, all of the lessons that he learned during these challenges, all of the basically all of the growth, all of the character arc. So during these challenges, he learned to overcome his inner conflict and to face his fears. And now everything that he's learned, like he just takes all of it together and comes up with some creative way to defeat the antagonist, to finally overcome the biggest obstacle. Basically, will be the final battle of the story. Like in every action movie, there's Avengers are going to fight the Ultron, like Neo and Trinity are going to take a lot of guns and fight the Smith, and or Neo is going to like bend the time and space and go and dive through the agents. Basically, well, you know what the final battle is, and this is what you are trying to write over here. And once you can figure out this step of the story, basically you're all set. You have all of the parts of the story, all of the elements, all of the characters. You know everything you need to know to write the story. And I brought a little note over here that if the characters, if you are trying to write an intelligent character, usually during these setbacks he is going to get in trouble by either by problems that were created for him by an antagonist, or through his inexperience, or some crazy magic is going to happen to him, and then he's going to solve these problems through his intelligence and resourcefulness and courage, whatever the good quality that he has. So you do not want to do the Deus Ex Machina where these challenges are being solved just by luck. You want to get the character in trouble through his bad luck, but you want to solve these challenges through his own resourcefulness and through his own the stuff that he does. Okay, so now you have an outline, you have every step of the story that you clearly understand, and the next thing that you want to do is to just write it. So basically the first stage of writing is creating what I call a shitty draft, pretty self-explanatory, and here what you do is to go through each of the elements of your outline. Like here there's going to be a list of the little scenes or the little bits of the story that you want to have a new story. Like you will just literally have like 5 or 15 items that you want to happen in your story, and it will give you solid structure. And now you just go one by one, item by item, and you want to just just improv discovery writing. So you sit down and if you can watch some improv scenes or just some purely discovery writing, basically you just write. There's really hard to deconstruct this step. again, what really helped me is to look at improv people. Like my favorite podcast is Harmontown, and often they have all sorts of sketches and all sorts of cool improv scenes in this podcast, and basically they just take a suggestion and start talking about and coming up on the fly with all sorts of things that happen to their characters. So basically, you just take a moment in the outline and just describe it. That's it. Basically, the simplest way I can put it is that you describe the thing that you have decided to describe over here. You go point by point, and your goal here is not to create a great story, but just to have something to work with. That's why I call it a shitty draft, and you really want to be the most basic, the most your goal is not to strive for quality, but to just turn the outline points into a bunch of writing that you can work with and improve. And this step is very important to me. I found it extremely useful because, again, when you are beginning to write a story, you often get stuck. You don't know what to write. You are like, oh man, I have this outline, but how do I turn it into the story? And again, you hit this writer's block. So when you're trying to just describe the outline points instead of striving for some sort of great quality, you can just quickly go through this draft, and then once you have this draft, you have a bunch of text you can work with, and you will improve it, and it will be way easier to turn shitty draft into a good story than it would be to turn outline into a good story like right away, immediately. Okay, so once you have this draft, you do what I call is fix/improve list, and what you do here is you look at the draft and just write a list of things that you would like to improve. You write, and then you sort these things in order of importance. Like you think about what, like, because the draft is shitty, there will be a bunch of things that you don't like about it, that you would like to make better, and you just look at the most important thing that you would like to make better, and then just make a list. Oh, I would like to improve a plot. I would like to make a better antagonist motivation. I would like to add more conflict to the scene. Or I think the resolution is kind of shitty, and I think it could be better. And the beautiful thing about this step at this stage is that after you have written a draft, you have already a whole bunch of information in your brain. Like when you were writing outline, you have very vague idea of the story that you're going to create. After writing the draft, you have the clear image in your story. You already imagine character. Your brain automatically filled a lot of the gaps. You came up with a lot of great ideas during writing, and now that you have a lot of information to work with, and now that you can just use this process of just what I call debugging, like like when you are writing code, you just look through the mistakes that you have made, and you fix mistakes one by one. And another beautiful thing about it, aside from just having a lot of information to work with and being able to do a much better job as opposed to like trying to write a story immediately. The other thing is that when you are looking at your story analytically and when you are trying to intelligently think about it, it trains your brain to really understand the flaws and advantages of your story, and it is also so-called deliberate practice. That is, you analyze your performance, and you figure out the clear, very specific challenges that you need to solve and figure out to make your writing better. And this will really improve your writing skill. This was a huge epiphany for me. Like by doing this step, like by listing things that I want to improve, and then figuring out ways that I can solve the problems that I have found in my writing. Like this process, like first of all identifying the problems and flaws and then fixing them, is so much better than just trying to then looking at your writing and think, oh man, it sucks, well, I guess I'm going to write another story, maybe the next one will be better. Here it gives you power, it gives you the tool to figure out how the story what exactly is lacking in your story, and how to make it better. And once you have gone through this process, you have developed the skills, and your brain becomes automatically able to identify and fix these problems. So it's extremely valuable, and I think this will be very useful for you. And also, basically, this is it. So you have written a shitty draft, you have wrote, fixed, and improved list, and you have improved your story step by step by step. And you can go through it several times. You can do several passes through story, shitty draft, then make it a little bit better. Then again, read the story, and maybe after some time, do it again, like go through it again, and maybe you will come up with new ideas about things that are not working, that you want to improve. And as you go through it a bunch of times, it is a very, very straightforward and structured process of turning a horrible draft into a complete awesome story. And basically you can do it as much as you want, as you can think as deeply as you want, spend as much time as you want, and you can take it to any level that basically at some point you just stop because you grow tired a little bit, and you think, okay, I'm going to move on to the next story, and the next one will be better. But again, this process allows you to indefinitely improve your story, and you will understand every part of it. And instead of just writing and hoping to get better magically just through some sort of experience or writing 10,000 words or whatever, here you have specific steps that allow you to improve your writing, and that way you will progress and learn much faster. And that's it. That's how you write a great story. And finally, the final big element that I find it is important to note is comedy, because I am a huge fan of comedy. Like, the most beautiful thing about fiction to me, the thing that I love the most about stories is comedy. This is what brings me true joy. This is why I, watch a lot of TV shows. Like, most of the great stories have great jokes in them, and are subversive and interesting and creative, and comedy is like essential and core part of creativity. And to me, this is what makes stories really awesome, and this is what makes me really engaged, and what I think is a huge part that makes some writers successful while others are not. Like in Writing Prompts subreddit, if you're familiar with it, there is a writer called Psycho Alpaca. He's like my favorite writer on the whole subreddit, and he's so fucking amazing because he writes stories in an incredibly hilarious way. So one of the major goals, I think, for every well, maybe not for every writer, but at least for me personally, is to get really good at comedy, because this is the best thing ever. And the great way to do, like, there are two tools that I use to come up to make my stories funny. And basically, it's very hard to analyze comedy, but this is the best advice I can give you at this level. Like, I'm not perfect at writing, I'm not perfect at comedy, but this is the best things I know that help me to make my stories funny. First of all, you can just make your story absurd. Like, come up with some random, crazy, off the wall, completely insane element. Like, you are writing a story about warriors or about something serious, and then add some, I don't know, crazy flying teapot into it, or some giant, I don't know, giant screwdriver that is falling on them and causing apocalypse, or an old lady throwing cats at them, like at the middle of the dramatic scene. Just by taking some absurd element and adding it to your story. I mean, I guess it's not the real way to create comedy, like how maybe stand-up comedians are writing jokes, but it's something that really helps to come up with jokes, because just absurdity without trying to come up with jokes, and instead trying to come up with something insane and absurd and crazy and out of the wall, it really does something to your brain that allows it to figure out jokes and find connections and find associations, and like when your brain sees some absurd, completely insane, crazy, batshit insane situation, it tries to make sense of it. Like automatic process in your brain that's constantly going on is that it's trying to make sense of the world. So when your brain is experiencing something completely insane, it's trying to figure out, well, how does it fit into the story, what it is, like why is it happening. And somehow during this process, it generates a lot of creative ideas and a lot of jokes. Again, it's very hard to deconstruct and explain, but if you just try to add some, like you're writing straightforward, serious, dramatic story, and then you're just trying to add some insane element like a talking squirrel into it, and then try to work it into the story and try to make sense of it, it will help you to come up with a lot of jokes. And I found it extremely valuable tool. It's very simple to use and it's really helpful for me. So I hope you will try it out and it will help you. And the other tool that I use is taking patterns and looking for the most things that they are applying to. Oh boy, you know what? This step is really hard to explain. There is a lot of video about comedy. That would be a very long video about explaining what patterns are and what it is to. You know what? What I will do another separate video about the comedy and this advice. There is a really great tool that I use to generate comedy, but for now you can go to the Medium. Okay, give me a second. Basically, you can Google comedy theory Ray Alice. Oh, here you go. Here it is, the first link in the Google. This is a little article that I wrote about comedy theory. Here I just explain everything I have figured out about comedy, like the best thing I can understand about how it works, and what you can do to generate jokes. Again, this is my best attempt at analyzing it. I'm not perfect at it, and it can be mostly wrong, but I think it will give you a lot of ideas and a lot of understandings that you can apply to writing your stories and making them funny. So anyways, I'm going to make a separate video about that because this is a huge deep topic, and oh my god, comedy is so cool. I love it so much, and I just want to understand it. I want to understand it. I don't yet understand it completely. I can't yet completely explain it very well yet, but I'm going to do my best, and maybe one day I will be able to tell you about how to write comedy. So anyways, if you add all of this, and let's just one more time go through all of this process to make it easier. So you come up with a setting, character, and a challenge. You use tropes to fill in the gaps that you are getting stuck with if you cannot figure something out. You ask and answer questions that you need to figure out to write a story. You use improv and discovery writing to just do a stream of consciousness writing to help your brain to fill in the gaps and understand the missing things of the story. You come up with characters, you write an outline, you come up with a setup, you add a problem and a goal, you escalate the events until everything goes to complete shit, and then finally your character takes all of his powers and resolves this final battle and defeats everybody, and he is the king. And then you write shitty draft by just describing each of the steps in your outline, each of the plot points in the outline. Then you write a list of things that you would like to fix and improve. You analyze and you fix and improve them, and you have a great story, and you add as much of comedy as you want during your writing during these stages. Like you can add an absurd setting or absurd character, or you can add some absurd plot point, or here you during writing shitty draft you can add some absurd line of a dialogue, and that will help you to make your stories funny. And great funny science fiction stories to me are like the most awesome thing a human can create. Like my best like what I aspire to is to create something like Rick and Morty, and to the best of my understanding this is what they are doing. And well, there you go. This is what I know about writing stories. I really hope that this was useful to you. I'm going to think about other videos I can create about writing and upload them to this channel. So you can subscribe, you can ask me some questions, and I'll see you in my next video.